Thanks so much for having us here today. We're really excited to be here to talk to you a little bit about what the current labor market looks like and a little bit about what we're doing to go ahead and recruit. Thank you. All right, so as Terry mentioned, we are from the Department of Administrative Services at the state of Ohio. We are from the centralized HR office. I am Kitty Hollingshead Mancil, Director of the Talent Management. Benjy Fournier, State Talent Acquisition Manager. So, to get us started today, we're going to do a little activity here. So if we could, whip out our cell phones. Everybody loves to be on our phones during presentations. We're going to go ahead and have you go and join at slido.com. We've got a number to go ahead and get you into our right there. And I see phones are coming out, so go ahead and make sure that you're getting joined. We're going to give everybody here just a minute to get on there. All right, so one more time. All right, very good. And while you all are joining here, we're going to take just a quick look at this PowerPoint to make sure it's doing what we'd like it to do here.
This. Well, we can pose the question to the group, I guess.
It's pulling up.
On the next slide, it's supposed to be showing the words that people type in. Is word cloud? Is there any way I can capture my laptop? Because it's working on mine. If you want, it's right there.
All right, and give us just one more moment here.
Oh, this is fun.
We're swapping laptops. What? We're swapping laptops.
Sorry. That's what we're looking for right there.
You may have to restart. You're going to have to adjust your settings.
There we go. Attention everyone. Success. We've made it through the first hurdle of the morning. All right, so as we can see, what you're seeing here is a word cloud full of words that you in the audience have used to describe what the labor market works through. If you want to keep on going ahead, keep adding words in. If you see one on the screen that describes, if you think that's the perfect word to describe what's happening in the labor market right now, please feel free to go ahead and put that in. You can see how it's kind of adjusting here. The bigger the word is, that means the more of you who think that that's a word that describes our current labor market. So taking a look at what we've got here, we're seeing words like challenging, competitive, difficult, desperate. I feel desperation every day, let me tell you. So I know what you mean. So impossibly ridiculous, Gen Z controlled. I'm glad to see that one. We'll actually be talking a little bit about that today. Resistant, tricky, frustrating, unapologetically lazy. I love that as well. We'll talk a little bit about what we think about our generational differences here in a minute. But thank you for participating with this on me. I just wanted to kind of give you a sense that you're not alone if you're feeling that you're frustrated with the current labor market. Everyone is feeling it at this point. No one is immune. And, you know, especially for those of us in public service, we may be feeling it a little bit more than the private sector is at this point. So to move on a little bit, now that we've talked a little bit about what the labor market looks like, I want to kind of give some background information here. I want to give just a little bit of background information about, you know, who's in the workforce right now, and we'll start with talking about that. So this is really a unique time in history because this is the first time that we have 5 generations in the workforce at the same time. So our different generations are going to be traditionalists, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials, and Generation Z. And what I'd really like to do is go through a little bit of information about what each of these generations are, what's influenced them. But as I go through these, one of the things we always get is, of course, we're dealing with individuals, right? So while I'm going to talk a little bit about some generalities that we see with these generations, remember that everybody's going to be a little bit different. When you're dealing with employees and recruiting, trying to get new employees in, you want to make sure that you're tailoring your approach very much to the specific individual that you're talking about. So let's get started. So first off, we have traditionalists. So making up 2% of the labor workforce, the US workforce, these folks were born between 1925 and 1945. A description of a traditionalist is they tend to be dependable, straightforward, tactful, and loyal. They were really shaped a lot by the Great Depression, World War II. Radio and movies were just coming around during this generation's time. If you're managing somebody who is a traditionalist, they're very much motivated by things like respect and recognition, and they like to provide long-term value to the company. Their communication style is going to be very much about that personal touch, so you're going to see things like handwritten notes instead of email, face-to-face communication, and their worldview tends to be very much obedience over individualism, so they are going to go along with the system. They also tend to have thoughts about age is going to equal seniority in the workforce. Their plan is to advance through the hierarchy, and in order to get the best out of traditionalists in the workforce, employers should make sure that they're providing satisfying work and opportunities to contribute, emphasizing that stability in the workforce. So moving up, the baby boomers. These folks were born from 1946 to 1964 and currently comprise 25% of the workplace. They tend to be very optimistic, also competitive, workaholics. For those of you who know baby boomers, I definitely know that there's a lot of workaholics in that group, but they do tend to be very team-oriented as well. Thinking about what shaped baby boomers, we have things like the Vietnam War, civil rights happening, and Watergate. So they tend to be very motivated by company loyalty, teamwork, and a sense of duty. And in terms of communication style, baby boomers are very flexible in that they like to use whatever communication style is going to be most efficient. So things anywhere from email to phone calls to face-to-face conversation, whatever is going to be most efficient, that is what they're going to do. Their worldview tends to be achievement comes after paying one's dues, so these are folks who feel like you should be putting in your time before you're moving up in the workforce. With these folks, as an employer, they need very specific goals and deadlines. You can put them in mentor roles, and they tend to do very well with that, and make sure that you're offering coaching style feedback. A couple fun facts about baby boomers that I thought were really exciting. So 65% of the baby boomers are planning on working past the age of 65, which, we traditionally think about as that time of retirement. So we do have a lot of baby boomers who are planning on staying in the workforce later than maybe we had previously seen. But at the same time, we have 10,000 baby boomers every day who are reaching retirement age. Next up, we have Generation X. These folks comprise 33% of the workplace and were born from 1965 to 1980. These folks tend to be flexible, informal, skeptical, and independent. If you think about what shaped this generation, we have things like the AIDS epidemic, the fall of the Berlin Wall, and the dot-com boom. These folks tend to be very much motivated by diversity and work-life balance and their professional interests versus the company's interests. They also, very similarly to baby boomers, because remember I mentioned lots of things you'll see kind of carry over here, their communication style is much like the baby boomers in that they value whatever's the most efficient. So again, email, phone calls, face-to-face communication, whatever gets the job done, that's what they're looking to do. Their worldview is that they tend to favor diversity, and they like to move quickly if the employer is not meeting their needs. So they're looking at their employers. If it's not getting it done for them, these folks are likely to move on to someone else. As an employer, you should really make sure you're giving them immediate feedback, providing flexible work arrangements where available, making sure that they have that work-life balance, and extending opportunities for their personal development. Fun fact about Gen Xers will actually outnumber baby boomers by 2028. Next up, we get into the millennials. So 35% of the workforce, these folks were born between 1981 and 2000. They tend to be very competitive, but also very civic-minded. They're open-minded on things like diversity and achievement. When you think about what shapes millennials, we're looking at things like the Columbine shooting, 9/11. The internet really came to prominence during these people's formative years. These folks are motivated by the quality of their manager and unique work experiences. In terms of what their communication styles are, they very much like text and IMs, also email. In terms of their general worldview, they're really looking to challenging growth and development opportunities. They want a fun work life, and again, much like Gen Xers, they're looking for that work-life balance. And they're also very likely to leave an organization if they don't like the changes that they're seeing. So in terms of managing these folks, employers should get to know them personally, manage by results, and be flexible on their schedule and work assignments, and give them immediate feedback. A fun fact here about our millennials, by 2025, millennials will comprise 75% of the global workforce. So this is the generation that's going to be a big part of the workforce here in the next couple of years. Finally, we're going to get to our newest generation, Generation Z. So these folks currently comprise 5% of the workforce and were born from 2001 to 2020. They tend to be very global, entrepreneurial, progressive, and maybe less focused. Thinking about what shaped these folks' worldview, life after 9/11, so for those of us here, life changed a lot after 9/11, and this is the only life that this generation has known, so very different. They also lived through the Great Recession, so a lot of challenging economic conditions for these folks. They also are the first generation where they really had that access to technology from a very young age. These folks are very motivated by diversity, personalization, individuality, and creativity. And their communication style, much again like millennials, is going to be the IMs and the text, but they also communicate a lot through social media. So this is really our first generation where we're seeing social media as a preferred communication style. Their worldview, and I know the audience is going to enjoy this. These folks tend to self-identify as digital device addicts. After I just made you get out your phones to scan the camera, we're talking about Gen Z being personal device addicts. They value independence and individuality, and they tend to prefer to work with millennial managers. They also appreciate innovative coworkers and new technologies in the workplace. So as an employer, if you're working with someone from Gen Z, you're looking to offer them opportunities to work on multiple projects at the same time, provide them with work-life balance, and allow them to be somewhat self-directed. So as an interesting couple stats here for Gen Z, we have 40% of Gen Z wants to interact with their boss daily or several times a day, so they like a lot of that interaction. And 84% of Gen Z expects their employer to provide formal training. So as you're getting Gen Z into the workplace, they are very much expecting that formal training to take place. So now that we've talked a little bit about who is in the workforce, I want to talk a little bit about some of the trends that we've seen that are really shaping, especially these last few years after COVID here. So Terry mentioned this morning the Great Resignation. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Really what we saw happen on the front end of COVID was people kind of hunkered down in their jobs because there was a lot of instability in the market, right? So we didn't see the normal amount of voluntary turnover happening at employers. Once things started to free up a little bit, what we saw was all of that pent-up movement where people had wanted to leave, had been thinking about leave, but really didn't feel comfortable leaving. We started to see those people move en masse. It got the term as the Great Resignation because we saw multiple people, and large millions of people, really moving from their company. I tend to prefer the term the Great Reshuffling because I feel like that's a little bit more accurate, because if you think about resignation, it really sounds like people are leaving the workplace altogether. And there is some of that happening, but really what we're seeing is that people are moving from their employer and moving into different employment. So that's where the reshuffling is happening. We're just moving between companies. Realignment, I think, is more about the mindset of these folks. And really, we've talked a little bit about the generations and how they're looking for value in their work and how they're looking at how that's going to align with their personal values. A lot of people during COVID really did an assessment of what their priorities are, where they want to be, and they're realigning their work to go along with their personal beliefs and interests. Now, with that being said, we also had 28 million baby boomers retire during COVID. We have started to see a little bit of a trend of some people are beginning to unretire, but that's a massive amount of expertise and experience that has left the job market over the past couple of years. That, some people retired early because of fear of, getting ill and things of that nature. Some people had, ill coworker or family members to have to take care of. So we saw a lot more movement on this than we maybe had seen over the past years prior to that. This is one that has impacted us and continues to impact us and will continue to impact us into the future. So our birth rate here in the United States has actually not been at the replacement rate since 1971 and has been significantly down since 2007. And really what that means is that as a country, we're not having enough children to replace the workers that we have that are going to be leaving the workforce. So we're really looking down the road at not having enough workers coming into the workforce. As Terry mentioned again this morning, unemployment is continuing to hover around 3.5%. That is the rate that is considered full employment in the United States. So all those words that you remember we talked about on that word cloud this morning, this is part of the reason why we're having problems getting folks in and why it's such a tough labor market. And finally, for every 100 open jobs, there's only 60 available workers. So again, when we talk about how difficult it is difficult because we just don't have enough workers to fill the job. So it's a very tight market. Now, with all that being said, let's talk a little bit about how that affects us in the public sector. So we've got a very in my opinion, jarring infographic up here. I want to give you a little bit background on this. So this is from Mission Square Research Institute. They do a lot of research into public sector, specifically state and local governments. And this is from a study that they did here in December of 21, so relatively recent. With that, we can see that 52% of state and local workers are considering leaving their job due to COVID-19 for either changing jobs, retiring, or leaving the workforce entirely. So 52%, I want you to just sit and think with that for a minute. Take a look around the table that you're sitting at and think about losing 52% of those folks. It's a little nerve-wracking here, right? And thinking about this, this is really why we have to up our game a little bit in terms of public sector recruitment. So with that being said, as Terry again mentioned, Terry, I'm giving you lots of call-outs this morning. I want to say that there is no silver bullet to this problem, right? There's no one solution that's going to fit everyone. Even if you find a solution, you're going to have to layer a lot of solutions together to really get through this. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Benjy, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about early career talent.
Thank you, Kitty, and good morning, everybody. Unfortunately, my part of the presentation will not involve taking our phones out, so I hope that we can still keep it fun and engaging as we talk about recruiting early career talent, which is something that I really find interesting and kind of a fun place to be working in. So hopefully we can reflect that in the presentation as well. So before I dive in here and talk a little bit about what is recruiting early career talent, why target early career talent, what does early career talent want, and once we get early career talent in the door, how can we keep the early career talent? I do want to open it up to the room. I know we've got plenty of coffee on hand, so I hope people have been indulging in the abundance of coffee to see what have you or your organization done to creatively recruit in general, or maybe early career talent specifically. I know that I'm sure everybody in this room has felt the effects and the difficulties of recruiting in the current environment that we're in. So eager to hear from you, what have you ran into and what have you done creatively to overcome some of those hard to fill positions?
So I also volunteer with our Chamber of Commerce, and they had a high school intern program, and I had a data transfer for our court system that I needed to do. So I actually opened up 3 positions for high school interns to do, and 2 out of the 3 are staying on. One's going to The Ohio State University and asked to come back during winter breaks to work, and the other one's going to be working 3 days a week in the afternoons.
Awesome, thank you.
We had a human resources position that we were struggling to fill, and we had an intern that had worked with us for about 6 months, and we opened it up as a position for her, and she is still going to college so that she could start with us and grow with us.
Excellent. So growing internships, I know that's definitely something that we've seen with the state as well.
For us, I think we've just lowered our bar. Years.
Go on.
Yes, because I work for a municipality, we have civil service testing, and saw that to be a barrier in our community. People have test anxiety and things of that nature. So recently in HR, I began civil service application workshops where we help the community. They come in, we talk about test anxiety, test-taking strategies, give them some sample questions of the civil service test based on the position that they're applying for, and that's been very, very successful in getting our numbers up in regards to applications.
Excellent, thank you. And I think that the general feel of that is going to be echoed throughout this entire presentation, is that we do kind of have to go that little bit extra mile and put in that little bit of extra effort, and typically it will pay off with results. So thank you for that one. Do we have anybody else?
Hi, I'm Kathleen Matted, and I'm here with Kate. Kate, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kate Nicholson.
We work at the Department of Administrative Services. We recently expanded elements of our state medical plan and health benefits for state employees as an effort to recruit both early career and mid-level career employees. You want to talk about the wellness plan and the maternity leave benefits?
Sure. We have a joint health care committee that is, meets on a regular basis, and part of that is discussion of our wellness plan, and we've expanded not only the benefits that the employees can receive, but also their spouses to get further engagement. We've also expanded the types of behaviors they can do to get that kind of reward, and we've expanded the benefits that people can receive, just to try to be more attractive than the other employers. So one example being our maternity benefits are now expanded to try to make sure that we are addressing all elements of that pregnancy, childbirth, and even post-delivery to make sure our employees are really cared for. And so we're trying to really target all those things that we know are very attractive to our workforce that are looking for those competitive benefit packages. So.
Thank you. We all work for the same agency, so I'd be remiss if I didn't tag in there as well, because I think that really is something great that we've done with the state of Ohio, and paired with that, the advertising of the benefits as well. It's one thing to get the benefits in place. It's another thing to get that information out in front of potential job seekers. And as far as the early career talent, that's actually not part of this presentation, but I think recruitment as a whole, the advertising and the branding of the nice benefits that we typically have to offer as public sector employers is something great. And what we've done is we've built out a web page on our career site. We include a lot of this information directly on our job postings to make sure that we're getting this out in front of potential employees for us here at the state of Ohio. So thank you for throwing that in.
I was actually going to comment on benefits as well. So just adding to that, we've implemented a new parental leave policy. So not just for the mothers, but also the fathers as well this past year. In addition, we went through a long series of years where we did not have compensation adjustments. We just implemented a new compensation study. So we're able to hire people at more attractive rates of pay, still not ideal to the outside world, outside of public sector, but also reinvigorating our tuition reimbursement program. And we're starting to get a internship fellowship program off the ground. So we're really trying to start, just like you said, advertising, branding, getting our resources more available to our new employees as they come in the door.
Awesome, thank you. And I think that's a good call out as well with the benefits, in that we really need to target what can we control. A lot of times that might be the benefits and how we advertise them. So I appreciate that call out.
So this would be both a preventing recruitment to try to keep people, and for recruitment. Post-COVID, we've maintained a more lax dress code, more lax policies on, say, tattoos and other appearance. It's been more continued remote work availability. And so all of those pieces are both to try to recruit, but also to maintain the workforce that we have to prevent recruitment.
Excellent. Yeah, the retention piece is, as the data Kitty showed, absolutely important as well. So really doing whatever we can do to keep that workforce, I think, is very, very important. So thank you for that. And did we have one more?
Hi, Randy from Mahoning County Children's Services. When I was in the Army in 1981, about half the guys that I served with were there because it was either the military or jail. So I am reaching out to I'm kidding, reaching out to my common pleas judges. I'm that desperate. But no, it's not creative, but we're offering signing bonuses and retention bonuses, referral bonuses, advertising our remote work, advertising our benefits, which don't seem to apply to millennials. They don't care about retirement. Most of them are on their parents' health insurance. So it's tough. I'm down 40%, and there's really nothing I can do.
What have you guys been doing to advertise the benefits? Just curious.
Yeah, we've got billboards. We've advertised on Indeed. And I did have a question. Is there Indeed just isn't, it's not working for us. What's happening with Indeed is we get these, apparently Indeed will auto-apply. So we're getting applications from people who don't even know that they've applied. They've never heard of children's services. About 60% of the people that we call for interviews don't show up. We're using some state incentive money to have a rolling billboard outside our agency. We're on college, all the college websites that caseworkers in Ohio have to have a college degree. So we're advertising at every university in the area. But is there another site other than Indeed that people have had success with?
So I would definitely, I'd be happy to open that up to the room, actually. I know that we post to LinkedIn as well. The majority of our state jobs will post to LinkedIn. And if you want to catch up with me after this, I can get you over an Indeed contact. I don't know the answer to the Indeed question. We've worked with them a decent amount, but I can get you a contact to see if maybe they can answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
About 8 weeks into the public sector, but one of the things that is effective is the culture and letting people know who you are inside that building. If they don't know, if they just drive by a building, they don't have any idea of what do public employees do, what is the interest, what is the draw, and we talk about civil service and how we're helping communities. I think that's part of it, is kind of letting them in a little bit, letting them know what your departments do, and it's a culture thing. Employees are interested in, specifically the younger group are very interested in being part of community and helping their communities grow. So you have a whole talent pool of people that if you kind of let them in a little bit and let them know what you're doing, they want to be part of that. So we might be missing the boat if we don't let them know what we do on the city side or county side. That may be helpful. And Indeed, by the way, you can turn that off, the auto apply, and I'll be happy to talk to you afterwards if you have a question on that. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. That is a perfect segue into my presentation. I'm wondering if you've seen the slides already, because that is exactly what I'm going to be trying to hit home here. So what is early career talent? We've really got to identify what early career talent means before we can actually start targeting it and, at the end of the day, keeping it. So early career talent, it's not just Gen Z. It's absolutely quite a bit made up of Gen Z, but it's also going to take into account early career professionals with less than 3 years in their current profession. So that might mean career changers, college students, individuals that are entering the workforce from a trade program. So absolutely going to be the Gen Z crowd, yes, and we're going to see specifically how to cater to that crowd. But similar to that, individuals that are coming out of an education setting where they're used to learning the majority of the day, and that's really what they're going to be looking for in the positions as well. I love GIFs, so bear with me. I also love Star Wars, so we've got here a TIE fighter targeting an X-Wing. But why target early career talent? As Kitty mentioned, these initial points here, the historically low unemployment, reshuffling of the workforce, the shifting market, but some great things that early career talent can bring is that creativity and the connectivity of the workplace. I know we've all already pulled out our phones. We know that Gen Z loves to pull out their phones. And it's really blossomed their ability to connect well, especially in a virtual environment. So definitely something to keep in mind. And coming from that typically educational setting, they're used to that proactivity and that problem-solving nature, and will definitely bring that to the workforce in your organization. Now, what does early career talent want? And this is exactly what we just hit on. Meaning and values are really our biggest tools for recruiting that early career talent. And being in public sector, we're pretty uniquely positioned to offer that. And on this slide, I like to give a little anecdote. So I went to the Ohio State University, go Bucks if we've got any Buckeyes in here, went to the business school there, and at Ohio State, never once was it mentioned to me starting my career in HR in public service. It was, the list is long of businesses here in the Columbus area, start off, go get an internship with them, and never really mentioned public service to me. Fortunately, I kind of took a leap, started an internship here actually in the city of Dublin for the Volunteer Resources Department. And part of that internship, I led a summer camp for middle school age kids based around volunteering. So what we would do is we'd go off to these different volunteer sites, and a great manager that I had in this position said, Benjy, when you bring them back from the sites, every single time, make sure that you look at the direct and the indirect impact that they had at those sites, and you discuss it with them, because we don't always make a direct impact. I'm not a highway state trooper keeping our highways safe. I help those indirectly that do hire those positions, though. And that's something that really stuck with me, and kind of that's how I got bit by the public service bug, is that then I started looking at what I was doing in the internship and thinking, okay, so maybe I'm not directly doing this here in the city of Dublin, but look at this indirect impact that I'm having. And I found that really cool, and that's something that I've carried with me throughout my career, starting my career out of Ohio State, here with the state of Ohio, and continuing my career with the state of Ohio in public service, is keeping in mind for me what that direct and that indirect impact is. And I absolutely feel that that is something that we can and should utilize for our early career talent, our Gen Zs that we are trying to recruit into the workforce. And that's what's really going to drive this meaning and the values-based nature that we know a lot of the Gen Z early career talent is looking for in positions. Now, they're also looking for collaboration, again, mostly coming from an educational background. They're used to collaborating in the classroom. Again, they're used to being on their phones and constantly collaborating on Snapchat and Instagram and TikTok and all of those places. So collaboration is going to be huge, and making sure that that's still facilitated, even if it is in a virtual environment over Skype or Teams or whatever that might be. Work-life balance. I'm sure this is no surprise to anybody in here that Gen Z is looking for that work-life balance. So anything that we can do to cater to that will be impactful in terms of recruiting that early career talent. And lastly, consistent feedback. Again, we're used to constantly receiving feedback from our phones, our watches buzzing, and that's kind of what early career talent is tuned to expect, and something that we should absolutely deliver to them. And that can be as small as the managers touching base with them on a daily basis and saying, hey, how impactful do you think your work is right now? Do you understand the value of the work and the meaning behind your work? Maybe on a weekly, bi-weekly, whatever it is, that constant feedback and input is really going to be something that is important for us with the respect to early career talent. Now, we've got all of those locked and loaded. How do we keep the early career talent now that we've got them in the door? And it starts with active listening and appreciating feedback. A lot of this early career talent, again, I know I'm kind of reiterating this quite a bit, they're coming from that educational background and they've just learned a lot and they're eager to see what they can do with that knowledge that they've recently acquired. So nothing is going to crush somebody that falls into that early career talent more than not being open to what they have to say and what value they can add in return for the value that they are noticing and receiving. And I have to say, continued emphasis on the meaning and impact of work. This absolutely can't be something that we advertise on our job posting. This is how impactful you're going to make such a big difference in the state or county or city or wherever you're at. And then that kind of dies off. And I think that comes back to ingraining that in the culture of the organization, but absolutely continuing to emphasize on the impact of the work that will be offered to that early career talent. Opportunities and new experiences, again, keeping the door open for more learning opportunities, giving them the option to kind of participate in multiple different projects. Again, they're still kind of thinking and functioning as a sponge. They're used to absorbing all of this knowledge, and they're eager to do so, which is, I think, a great benefit for the organization, that eagerness to learn. So we definitely want to quench that thirst in terms of giving them the experiences that a lot of this early career talent is looking for in their positions. And again, work-life balance still. This kind of comes back to holding true and having a realistic job preview on the postings and holding true to that realistic job preview that we use to kind of reel in the early career talent to begin with. And this is my all-time favorite GIF of all time. I can't not look at this and not get a smile, but catching early career talent, I think we've absolutely hit home here. It's no easy task. And we talked about it does take some more effort and time on the recruiting end, but I absolutely think that it will bear fruit if we put in that effort and the time to build out the meaning and value and impact of the work that we do and we offer here in the public sector. And I think that is absolutely going to be our key to bringing in this early career talent. So that being said, I'd like to open up to any questions for Kitty and myself.
Let me jump in and encourage the audience to share and be creative, because I think earlier there was some great sharing, and one of the things to remind you is, given the diversity of the audience here, introduce yourself to some people, ask some people some questions, and again, we want you to be either some questions or sharing some things in your part of the state that they're doing. And I also wanted to mention earlier, one of the comments that came, there was a person that introduced herself as being from the Department of Administrative Services, and she was a little modest. She isn't just from the department, she's the director, Kathleen Madden. And for those of you who don't know, and one of the things that DAS does is, beside build buildings and run the computers and personnel related things, one of the things where our board, State Board of Personnel Review, gets involved in, and DAS is sometimes a part of it, either at the state level or counties, is a little thing called classification, because you might know that there's a lot of employees very sensitive. Sometimes you'll say, for the next week, can you do this or that? Somebody's off sick, we want you to do this or that. And there's a lot of interesting questions, because there are employees who take it very sensitive. If they're doing a higher level of work, they kind of want to be paid that. So that's one of the interesting questions that comes probably in 10 or 15% of the cases to our board in a lot of counties. But Kathleen is here, and we're happy to have the representation from the governor's cabinet, and of course what Benjy and Kitty have done. So hopefully I've encouraged you. You've got some questions or sharing. We got the microphones. Don't be shy.
So my name is Don Essex. I'm from the city of Findlay. And one of the things that we started doing a couple of years ago, bringing in young people, is partnering with the local high school. And one of the things that we did was in the water department. So a lot of kids in general don't really understand what the city does. They don't understand what municipalities do. So they don't see the police and parks as part of the city. So they don't have a full understanding. So one of the things that we did along with the water treatment superintendent and the city engineer is go out to the city, or go out to the school. So first we partnered with the school. We talked to administration and told them what we wanted to do. And then they put out something to the school students to see who would be interested. And to our surprise, and we're pretty small, we're probably about 42,000 people in Findlay, about 300 employees. So we didn't expect a lot of students to want to participate in this. What it is an internship. So we didn't expect a lot of students because they probably didn't even understand what water operators did. But to our surprise, about 25 students showed up. And our internship was for 6 to 8 people. So 25 students showed up. We met in the auditorium. We talked about what water operators do and gave them an opportunity to participate in the program. So what we ended up doing is hiring 8 of those students. We went through the whole interview process. We had them dress up, bring in resumes, the whole 9. And then we hired 8 of them. They did a summer internship. And 2 of those students, they were seniors, actually applied for city positions. So we taught them what operators do. And actually they got credit for attending a 6-week class. So they got credit towards a license in case they decide to do that, in case they decide to become an operator. So we taught them about the city. We gave them an opportunity to make money during the summer. And 2 of them actually applied for positions with the city. And they had to get their driver's license to apply for the city. So there are a couple of wins there. So I think it's important for municipalities, for city, county governments to go out and make opportunities for young people and teach them what municipalities do. So we're continuing to do that. It's turned out to be a very successful program.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that sounds like a great way to kind of start to build that pipeline of early career talent.
Hello, my name is Alexandra DiVincenzi Bush. I work for Department of Job and Family Services in Trumbull County. And I would actually like to give kudos to DAS. I think that when you went through your presentation, a lot of things resonated with me. So when being a local government, we look at the state because we're, an arm of the state. And when I look at the DAS job descriptions, when I look at your job postings, your marketing, it is phenomenal. So you do clearly put your mission, your vision. I mean, you can tell what you're applying for and why you're applying it off the bat. That is something that I think we have a lot of area of opportunity, and I'm sure in the room. Also, the opportunity where you continuously are giving other job opportunities that match something that somebody had already applied for. That's phenomenal. I mean, it's almost like you're recruiting without recruiting. Like you're having your technology and your systems do it for you, which I commend you on. But just looking at your job descriptions, there's no denying what this person's getting themselves into. And I think that being upfront is very important. You guys do a very good job at that. As well as advertising your benefits. I mean, it's all on there. It's amazing. So kudos.
Thank you. I will say those are my favorite kind of questions and comments.
I have 2 questions for you. One is if you're seeing an increase in jobs that are being automated out of existence. I know that we're seeing technology improvements that have eliminated some of the need to hire some of the positions we've had. So if that's something that others are seeing. And then the other is in the administrative code, you define a work week. So on the work-life balance side, has there been any consideration for more flexibility on that end for a future of a 40-week work week, or other flexibility that provides that work-life balance piece?
Both good questions. So I personally have not seen much of a shift towards any automation or honestly towards the 4-day work week at the state. I will say at my local Giant Eagle, they have switched out like half of the cash registers for the self-checkouts, which I actually like those a lot. Katie, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I would say we think about it a lot in terms of the technologies we're looking at, talking about our own office ourselves, you know. With recruitment being the way it is, we've really taken a look at, when we're looking at future-based technology, what can we do to make it easier for HR at the state to be able to run with, frankly, somewhat reduced workforces from what we've historically seen. So we're definitely looking at the technology angle, but that doesn't stop us from trying to get good people in at the same time. But you know, with the labor market being what it is, with the limited amount of workers that we're going to see coming forward, we have to forward think about that. We need to think about that before the house is on fire, right? So the more we can pre-plan and be ready to automate things as possible, we need to be there.
Okay, sorry, it's going to feel very loud because I'm right by the speaker. My name is Amanda Harold. I work for the City of Kettering. And I just felt inclined to share this. This is something we recently started doing with our employees. We always would do exit interviews when they leave. So we have now started doing stay interviews because we understand the challenges of recruiting. So stay interviews really give you an opportunity to listen, just as kind of what Benjy had said. Listening to your employees, changing, working on your culture. There may be things that you're doing or not doing, that this gives employees an opportunity to tell you and also feel valued. They feel valued, they're going to stay, and also the number one way to recruit is by word of mouth. It isn't really anything you can pay for. If you have a really good reputation as an employer, people talk. So I just want to share that. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Carrie Calloway, and I work for Champaign County Job and Family Services. I was just wondering if you had any comments that you could share about the new trend of a quiet quitting, especially in relation to the work-life balance and the flexible schedules being offered and work from home. I know that seems to be, giving more opportunity for this quiet quitting.
Absolutely. I personally have not done a ton of research into the quiet quitting. My knee-jerk reaction is actually going back to the stay interviews to do more to actively engage and solicit feedback from individuals so we can have a little bit better of an idea before we actually run into the individual quitting. But Kitty, I don't know if you've ran into that at all.
Yeah, I tend to agree a lot with Benjy. The engagement piece is really, really key to that because for those of you who may not know, quiet quitting is where you come in on your job and do the bare minimum just to get by, essentially. So we do see a little bit of that. But I think especially as you're looking at your younger talent, as Benjy talked about, that engagement piece is a key. And particularly as we're in a lot of us are in hybrid work environments, it's very easy to kind of let that stuff just go by, right? Like out of sight, out of mind. For years and years where we were at the office, it was easy to engage because people were right there and it was right in front of you and you didn't really have a choice. Whereas especially if you're in remote work, it's very easy to get very sucked into your screen and maybe not engage with your folks the way you used to. So I think I agree with you, Benjy. Engagement is going to be key on that.
Okay, I like what Amanda said, not only because I'm from the same area where she's from, but what she stated was important. I know at Hamilton County, and as one of the labor relations managers, what we do in one section of the county is when someone turns in their resignations, we do an exit interview as well. We sit them down, we talk to them and say why, and you know, what led you to leaving and so on. But I also know that the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services is doing that for the Children's Services section. So we're going to reach back and get that information too. So we're not going to necessarily do an exit interview on the children's services workers, but we would, because obviously it's going to already be done, but we would like to know why people are leaving. And hopefully they'll be honest and fill out the exit interview, even if they don't want to put their names, because sometimes they're going to give us what we don't want, but what we need to hear in order to do better in the future. So we're going to have to plan the work and work the plan to keep the workers that are there and the workers that are coming in the door, along with I know Job and Family Services in Hamilton County is thinking about retention bonuses. So there's a lot that's going on that we're trying to keep people in the door.
So Betty Young, Hocking College. So the associate degree is often overlooked, and I think there's an opportunity for employers to reevaluate job descriptions that may have requirements for advanced degrees that may not need them for the entry of that person into the organization. Once the person is hired, another benefit that is valued by employees is the opportunity for continuing education. And there can be a mandate that they have to stay a couple of years after they receive that, or they owe it back to the company. There's ways to do that so that you can also build retention in, but there's also a sense of loyalty from employees when a company has invested in their education. So if you evaluate those job descriptions, and maybe it says a bachelor's degree, but could you take somebody with an associate degree with an expectation that the company will support you for some period of time for you to finish that? There's so many options to do that today. And you can recruit at those community colleges.
That's
and
a
we
great
would love
point.
to talk to you after this session too.
Hi, I'm Amy Galloway Roma. I work for Five Rivers Metro Parks in Dayton, and I'd like to piggyback off what my neighbor here from Kettering had suggested. We don't necessarily do stay interviews, but we recently created a committee, the Future of the Workplace, and 15 or so members of this committee went throughout our entire Metro Park system and interviewed employees, asking them, in a perfect world, in their dream world, what would you like to see in the workplace as we go forward, as we get out of the pandemic, as we make permanent changes. And one of the things that was overwhelmingly decided was flexible schedules and remote working when possible. I haven't heard the results yet. I think they're coming in either last week or this week, but it does sound like flexible schedules and remote work where possible is really popular among employees these days. But the committee, I think, may be ongoing to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our employees, which is very similar to a stay interview, probably an almost identical concept, but that seems to go well.
So one of the questions that I frequently get with regards to working from home is, are the employees working while they're working from home? Is there any information you guys can share with regards to how to back up that argument, ways to identify if the employees are working? Are they truly putting in the full 8 hours? Anything to share on that topic? Take a step.
So I think working from home has really created an environment where we have to manage differently, right? It comes back to what I just said about a couple minutes ago about it used to be very much, you see your employee is there, there's the assumption that they're working, they may or may not have been working, but they're physically there, right? So there's kind of that assumption that goes along with it. Remote work has kind of made us change that a little bit. So there's multiple ways you can go about this. Really, I always recommend managing based on a results-based type of scenario. So
what does your employee expect it to be put out, making sure those expectations are clear so that they know what the work is that they're going to be producing. We talked about engagement, making sure you're engaging with your employees throughout the day and not just kind of that out of sight, out of mind that's so easy to do. But there's also technological things you can do. So a lot of us are using Teams, so you can definitely see the activity level on that. You can always do status reports and have your employee report what they've done throughout the day. There's a lot of different things you can do. As a manager, I try to customize my approach to the individual, right? Because there are some people who need me to check in on them more than others, so I try to be very cognizant of that. There are some people that do better if we have them regularly report in what they're doing. So it's required of me to be much more flexible as a manager, and really that's what I recommend you start with, setting those benchmark, this is what the expectation is, doing the follow-up engagement, and then just following through. If we get to the point where we start to have an issue, which hasn't happened yet, I'm fortunate to have a very high-performing team that does a lot of good work for me, those things are going to be addressed very promptly, so it's a matter of that immediate feedback again. We'll have some conversations about that and make sure that they know that if they're not meeting those expectations, we're going to take another look at that work arrangement, and if it's not working for them, then we're going to take a look and see, do they need to be in the office to get their work done?
Yeah, I'll just add to what Kitty said is that we, at the Department of Administrative Services, Governor DeWine really challenged us to make Ohio a model employer, not just in the private sector, but for state employees to lead the way. And so we really take that to heart. It's great to hear that you use our resources. We'd like to also hear from you if there are additional resources you might need to us. Someone asked the question about an amendment to the administrative code. I think you're talking about 123 in the definitional section, and we will certainly look at that. We try to make our policies, we know that they need to be generally applicable to various state agencies, from the corrections officers to the home-based IT professionals. And so if there's opportunities for improvement that you see from us, we'd be happy to learn, hear about those. We did adopt some hybrid work environments and some remote environments, but we also have, as you all do, 24/7 operations that we run. So we really try to be generally applicable and to have Ohio lead the way. And that's, Governor DeWine's leadership and directive and strong encouragement to us, and we appreciate it and we take it to heart. So thank you.
All right, I think we're getting ready to wrap things up. Just one more moment.
We've got time for one more question. Is there one final question, comment, or sharing? If not, we want to thank very much Kitty and Benjy for what you've done, and also the person that spoke last was Kathleen Madden, and I think I heard her say if you've got some things DAS ought to be aware of or do differently, don't be shy and let them know. So since we adjusted and fine-tuned our schedule a little bit, the good news is all that promised coffee you got to make sure you drink and use up. It's time for that, or the bathroom runs, or talking to some of the other people, but we'll re-adjourn back here at exactly 11:02, so enjoy the break, and again, appreciate DAS and our two great speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.